Right. Hey, how's it going today? So, purpose of this next video is to kind of help people select a harness, um, oftentimes called saddles in arboriculture. We got three basic styles of work positioning sit harnesses that we use in tree work. Um, One of them, and this is an old design, is going to be your wide back style hip belt with your large steel D's, and oftentimes they'll come with this what we call a butt strap seat. It's simple. It's a comfortable harness when you're on your spurs. It's a very old design as far as harnesses go. Next up is kind of evolution in the harnesses was instead of having these two D's that come together to form your center attachment point for your rope system, we now have a 2-inch webbing sliding bridge with two big steel D's on there. Still the tongue buckle style belt, so just like buckling up your trousers. The addition here is you have a bosun seat with leg straps. So now you're essentially sitting on a park bench while you're hanging in the canopy. And again, the big steel D's, which was preferred, and still a lot of guys want that on their harnesses, that easy to reach around and clip in. Really simple with the gear loops, a little snap for your handsaw. Guys do hang their chainsaws there. I don't recommend it. Just a really simple design, minimal on the padding. Was a popular harness for us in the 90s. And then another style of harness, this is a leg loop harness with the fixed center attachment point. This is a new Tribe Pro gear. Again, you see the big wide waist belt, because a lot of guys in tree work, you will find yourself doing a removal, so you're going to be on spurs and a flip line. Having that robust belt to dissipate the force of your weight when you're standing on your spurs on your flip line is really nice. This is simple with a couple gear loops, couple snaps for hanging your saws, a loop there, got loops for suspenders. One feature that this has, and a lot of the new harnesses do have, is slotted webbing. The slotted webbing allows you to insert gear bags, loops, and carabiners as needed. So that's kind of where we're at with our work positioning harnesses. These are class 2 harnesses, which means they're not for fall protection. They're for work positioning, a static rope environment, nowhere where you're going to go up and take a fall onto your anchor system. So here we've got 3 different versions of what I call lightweight harnesses. Something you want to think about when you're deciding to purchase a harness. There's some considerations. A is budget. None of the harnesses that we sell or any other distributors sell, none of them are poor quality harnesses. They're all very good quality, and they're made for working in the environment that we work in the canopies, for doing tree work, whether it's pruning, removal, recreational climbing, what have you. Some of the things you want to think about are, A, your climbing style. Are you primarily climbing on a double rope system and doing lots of removals? Are you one of those individuals who wants to carry every tool out of their gear bag on their harness? Your body weight, your size, okay? Bigger guys like me aren't going to be as comfortable in the really minimal, narrow belts, narrow leg loops, minimal padding type of scenario. And then also how you want your center attachment point. Do you like that fixed point? Do you like having the 2 D's that come together? There's downsides to everything, and there's good sides to everything. Or do you want a floating bridge? Most tree workers prefer the floating bridge because it's going to give you a lot of mobility on your rope system. All 3 of these harnesses here have a floating bridge. This has a floating bridge. The nice thing about rope bridges is you could add rings or rigging plates for your climbing style. This Sequoia here actually has an adjustable rope bridge, so I can adjust the length of it, putting my climbing system further away from me or bringing it in. Like I was talking about before, there's slots all through the webbing on this harness to allow you to insert a carabiner for hanging your chainsaw, You've got lots of gear loops on some of the harnesses. Those first three where we showed you where the D's were really floppy, these D's are always going to stay pointed forward like that. And that's, you know, a preferable feature for me. A lot of folks like that, just where that D is always oriented in the position where you're going to clip equipment into it. Here's another Petzl Sequoia. This is their SRT version, so you have the floating bridge as well as a rated center attachment point. Okay, it also has a rated buckle here on the back to where you can put a Sequoia top on it, or in this case their SRT harness, which will clip into that center attachment point for load bearing purposes. You can also draw this up and use it to tend your hitchhiker, your unison, or your rope runner, any of your hybrid devices that you happen to be using. And it has the same arrangement of gear loops as the regular Sequoia. Features on harnesses, we'll go into that next, but this has a little bit of adjustable rise. So this length here where it comes off the waist belt and joins with your leg loops, we can shorten that or lengthen it, and that'll tilt us back in the harness or hold us in a more vertical orientation. That is a feature that you want to look for in a harness if you're looking for adjustability. Here's another lightweight harness. This is a favorite of mine. This is a New Tribe Onyx. This is in a custom color that they made for me. New Tribe makes good harnesses, really robust. The nice thing about harnesses like this is these are light. You know, they'll, in your gear bag, they wad up to a really small package, okay? But they do have enough padding and enough weight distribution to be comfortable for you. And the same thing here, these D-rings will flop back a little bit once it's on you. They'll stay forward. You have the adjustable rise here, just like on the Sequoias. Slotted webbing. You know, there I was able to insert my transporter saw hook. So that's your Onyx. Floating bridge. The nice thing about the ones that have the rope bridges for your floating bridge, that's $2 for me to change out my bridge. So I don't hesitate to change a bridge every 6 weeks if I'm climbing every day. The bridges here are sew-on, but also replaceable, so it's an easy fix. Whereas on this harness, yes, it is a floating bridge, but when that wears out, you're not replacing it. You know, some things to think about too, people will oftentimes ask me, well, how long is that harness going to last? Will it last 5 years? Will it last 6 years? OSHA wants you to change out a harness every 5 years. That doesn't necessarily mean your harness is going to last 5 years. The oils from our body, our sweat, are pretty caustic to stitching. Then there's just the standard wear and tear, the abrasion. So a harness doesn't necessarily have a set lifespan. A production climber certainly should be able to get, you know, every bit of 2 years of use out of a harness. But, you know, don't lull yourself into thinking, oh, I was climbing on that harness for 8 years. If you're a production climber, in reality, that was too long. Right? You're making money. This is life support equipment. Don't be afraid to change it out. So, you know, that's kind of our offerings in the uber lightweight categories. For me, weight is a consideration in packability in a harness because I have to travel a lot. When I travel to go do training, being able to fit my personal kit into one bag is pretty critical. So a couple of my favorite harnesses aren't good ones for going on the road with because they eat up a lot of room. Now we're in a little bit into what I kind of call the modular or super adjustable harnesses. There's a bit of adjustment with those last ones that I showed you where you can adjust the rise. You can't really move your hip Ds at all. You know, the leg loops, you can tighten them, loosen them. So the first one is the Ergovation. As you can see, this is a little bit different from the stock version, but you know, it's got nice features. The ISC quick connect buckles, which makes it easy to get on and off. This particular one has rigid fiberglass leg loops. Okay, lots of Velcro everywhere, which can be a pain sometimes, but so those fiberglass leg loops are padded, but that stiffness gives a lot of support, so when you're hanging in the harness, it's actually pretty comfortable. But it creates a heavier, bulkier harness too. And as you can see, you know, that one's going to eat up a bit more space in my gear bag. And a large reason for that is, you know, the rigid fiberglass leg loops. Now this harness, you can actually shorten the outer belt to, you know, this is a large, so in reality I prefer to wear a medium, but I can't wear my rain gear and stuff with a medium, and the hip D's aren't in the right place. And later on we'll show you how important that is that's really where you size a harness, is the position of the hip D's on your body when the harness is on you. So the Ergovation, you know, there's 3 different versions of leg pads you can get. You can add a batten seat to this harness. I have the rope bridge on this one. A nice feature on some of the rope bridge harnesses is they'll have 3-hole rigging plates. So that allows you a couple things. One, you got your rope bridge installed in one set of holes on the rigging plates. Another one is you can run your lanyard, especially if you're going with a long lanyard, use it as a double rope system when you're advancing your anchor in the canopy, and you're attaching it to the rigging plates here, which keeps it out of the way of where your rope system is attached on your central attachment point. And here on this one I've got a swivel, which I use from time to time. You know, this particular harness has a really big padded back pad here, and you can add another piece of padding or take it out. I like it in. It kind of helps. I got a bad back. It helps with my lumbar. You could also put an ice pack in there if you needed to, or a hot pack if that's what you needed. And then inside is a Swami belt that you connect first. So, you know, you get down out of one tree, you can unbuckle the waist belt. Your harness isn't going to drop to the ground on you. You get a little bit movement of your hip D's when you make these adjustments here. So you can move that forward or aft to a degree on your hip. And like the other harnesses I showed you, you can adjust the rise to a degree. I'm maxed out here on this particular harness for my adjustment. I have the floating bridge of my choice there. So another one that's really popular for folks is the tree motion. This is the regular tree motion. There's also one they call the S Light. Essentially the lighter one doesn't have the quick connect buckles for starters on the legs. Has the thickness of this conveyor belt material here is half that thickness. So that's one of the ways they can make it lighter. These fit. All the other harnesses I've showed you are waist belt harnesses. They're running on your waist, okay? This one's going to go down a bit lower. It's going to be coming up off your pelvic girdle and getting down closer to where your center of gravity is and a better pivot point. It's a really popular harness. A lot of guys like it. You know, there's parts that wear out on them. They're almost all replaceable now. It's probably one of the most comfortable harnesses for competition climbers. And this one will really make a small package in your gear bag. It's really easy to get it packed up. You know, some of the things is the buckle on this, you know, it's not like a really easy loosen and tighten the strap type of buckle. You actually have to feed that up. So it's not one that you're going to cinch down on your waist when you put the harness on. You're going to have to make that adjustment and then kind of ride with it. They color code stuff, so if it's red, that's not life support. If it's green, that's a rated life support connection. So there's your hip D's. It's got the small green ring. They opted, it's not a rigging plate, it's just a big D-shaped. So you can, again, connect your long lanyard system or an additional double rope system right there. So that's your tree motion. A lot of adjustability there. You can adjust the rise. You can adjust the position of your D's a little bit. And then another modular one that I've been playing with here for a little bit. This is the Matt Cornell rope saddle. And this kind of combines some of the designs of the older traditional harnesses with the benefits of being modular and really, you know, very adjustable for the user. And it's a simple design. It's effectively just some, you know, conveyor belt type of material, leather interior with some padding, tongue buckle. The leg loops, the leg pads are constructed the same way, but the backbone of the harness is 2 pieces of rope and then a rope bridge. So your D rings, as they are, they're not Ds, are these big aluminum green round ones here. You can move the position of your Ds very easily by moving that knot. You can adjust your rise there by adding or taking up slack here on your anchor bend. That's your replaceable rope bridge. It's a really durable Dyneema cord, tight jacketed line there. As far as the gear loops go on this particular harness, and just like the tree motion, you put those where you want. Here you just tie some scaffold knots with some tubing and some cordage, and that's how you get your horizontal gear loops. That's where you're going to attach your suspenders, is here, and there in the front. You've got additional gear loop options there. So this one, the user basically decides where he's going to put his equipment on this harness. It's a little bit of weight on it. I do have some gear on there, but it's actually a very comfortable harness. And then you go back to the tree motion. We talk about the conveyor belt material. These little holes here you can thread line through to do your own custom little gear loops. You have 2 fixed gear loops that are already attached to the harness, but there's a variety of places for you to arrange where you want to rack your equipment. And I've seen some people do some really trick things. These have small Ds, some guys like big Ds. You come back to the Matt Cornell, a buddy of mine put great big steel rings in there, because he preferred that traditional style with the big Ds, and he loves it, and that runs really well that way. And then there's add-ons that you can put on these harnesses. This has a nice pair of suspenders. Like I said, I was talking about guys wanting to pack a lot of gear. There's a couple different suspender setups you can add to the tree motion very easily. The Ergovation has a set of they're not suspenders, it's actually a top for this harness. There's one attachment point. The other ones are going directly to the rigging on the belt. And you can make this be a rated fall arrest harness. So if you're a bucket operator and you want to have a harness you can work in your bucket and climb out of the bucket, transfer to the tree to continue working in the canopy, the Ergovation's set up that way. And then we do sell a variety of special order class 3. So, these are work positioning harnesses, but they're set up for fall protection. This is one I use. It's a Height Tech. It's got the ventral fall arrest attachment point, and then the dorsal. The dorsal's kind of going out with a lot of industries. It's still sticking around for arboriculture. But these are simple, they got big aluminum Ds here for your work positioning lanyard, simple gear loops, still the slotted webbing to attach your own equipment, nice big padded shoulder straps. So that's a class 3, and this is rated for fall protection as well. Okay, so that's kind of the normal arboriculture harnesses, and then you'll see some other ones. People ask me what's a good recreational harness. New Tribe's got a ton of good rec harnesses, but this is their simplest one. This is an original I have. It's called the Flak Jacket. Now it's called a Tree Fox. It's the same thing, but it's just 2-inch webbing that's sewn and then rolled at the edges where it's going to contact you. There's no padding in this harness, but you'd be surprised at how comfortable it is. It's got soft Ds that are rated, 5,000 pound Ds, versus having a aluminum or a steel D. And here you're going to connect to a central attachment point in that pair link, which gathers up your waist belt and then the yoke going to your leg straps. So that's, that'd be a recreational harness. This wouldn't be a first pick at all for somebody who's doing production tree work. You'd get tired of this Spartan style real quick. All right, so another harness we have here that is a true modular design. If you ignore the top that I have in my hands, this is the Edelrid tree core, right? And they just took their normal core industrial access harness and added in a webbing bridge that's adjustable in length, but only so far because it's also tethered to the bridge riser on your leg loops. But with the addition of their core top, which gives you both dorsal fall protection attachment point, and a ventral. They've now made a class 3 fall protection harness. So another good choice for the individual who runs a bucket and is a climber as well, and you're coming out of the bucket, accessing the tree. This is a good, well padded, lightweight option for that. It has plenty of gear loops, nice padded straps, padded belt, attachment points for your chainsaws, slots in the webbing so you can put gear holders where you need them. So that is another, easy class 3 modular option that we have available. All right, so real quick, I'm gonna go through and show you some of the benefits of the different styles of harnesses. So we'll start out with our Weaver wide back with the butt strap. One nice thing right off the bat is it's super easy to put on because you don't got to worry about stepping through any leg loops. You'll see guys using this harness with just the waist belt. I mean, it's not recommended at all. I understand the logic. If you're on your spurs and flip line, you don't need your leg straps, but these are here for a reason. And then you just got to find the, there you go. So all this is just a retention strap. You don't need it parachute harness tight. So now you can see I've got this strap, and when I bring the D's together, I'm going to have a seat of sorts. So first off, I'll show you where, remember the design ideas and the technology at the time, we were all climbing on a double rope system. So this is a split D suspension system. You can bring them together. You could give yourself a little bit of relief with a spreader snap. That's what we did in the old days. And it keeps some of that pressure off the bottom of your hips on your upper thigh. But most guys run it like this. You can also, this same harness will be available with a 2-inch webbing floating bridge with the D's on it. But so in a double rope system, most of us that are running like hitch climber pulleys and stuff, when we clip on, if we don't have a swivel, our hitch and the tail of our rope is going to be going out right or left. Well, with this setup, because we're coming through both of these D's, it's either going to be facing outside or inside. Inside's not going to work very well for you, but then you just so you can see you're just kind of suspended on this butt strap here when you're on your rope system. You're not really pulling on the waist belt at all. It's all on the straps on your legs, and that's great. It's kind of comfortable, but the downside is, see how my legs are trapped together? I can't stem. I can't, that's as far as I can get my legs apart. So that's something to think about when you're purchasing a harness, is what you're going to be using it for. Where this is going to shine is for the beginner spur and flip line work. This nice big padded waist belt is cush. It's going to be super comfortable. I mean, that's really comfortable. That big, wide, padded pack pad is excellent. So, another thing to think about if you're starting out, people ask me all the time, do I need an SRT harness to be able to climb stationary rope technique? No, you don't, but there's going to be harnesses that are going to be a lot better suited for that. This particular harness it's going to be awkward. As you can see, your center attachment point is pretty high. It's, you know, it's almost up to my sternum here. So yes, I can climb SRT in this, but the simple fact of a stationary rope system, you're going to be suspended in space. On your rope, and you're going to want some mobility. So that's the downside for this particular style of harness. Its best application is going to be for the beginner and where you're primarily doing spur and flip line work. Where you get to where you got to go to the outer reaches of the canopy and move on your rope system, there's different options. So next I'm going to show you just what we could call a standard leg loop adjustable sit harness. So I got my Sequoia here. These type, you either can step through your leg loops that are closed, or you can unbuckle them and just step through the harness. Lock your quick connect buckle. Nice thing about this style of buckle, real easy to cinch it up, get the correct fit. So I got the floating bridge, this particular one. I've got the adjustable bridge. I like to run it short for most applications. So, you know, again, with your rope floating bridge, it's real easy to add attachment plates or rings. A lot of guys will run a swivel. So here I can clip it in directly to the rope bridge if I want. And that'll have, in my double rope system, line's going to be panning out to the right or the left. I like the right. Okay, so we were talking about the rise and the hang, also the floating bridge. So the benefit of the floating bridge is I can get all the way down sideways to reach something. Or hang neutral and suspended. So now let's talk about the rise. So right now, I've got this oriented to where I'm truly in a sitting position. Most of my weight is being borne on my leg pads. If I wanted to get a little bit more vertical, to see that length, I'm going to shorten that up now. So now I'm oriented a little bit more vertically. Now I'm sharing the load between my leg pads and now starting to come onto my waist belt. And if you tighten it more and more, you'll be putting more force on your belt than you are on your leg straps. So that's the nice thing about the adjustable rise, is you can sit yourself all the way sitting, or you can go more in a vertical suspension, and you just find what works best for you. Now a harness like this is going to work great. You don't need to have the SRT Sequoia. The only difference there is that is set up to have a traditional top, the Kroll top, so you have a chest ascender functioning as part of your rope walker system, whereas in arboriculture, most of us are using one of the 4 hybrid devices. It's functioning as a chest ascender going up, and then it's our descender work positioning device when we're in the canopy. So the nice thing about having the adjustable bridge, if I didn't like the height of my unisender here, I could either raise it coming off my central attachment point or shorten it up. And for going up, I like it to have it a little bit shorter. So you can see how with your leg loop harnesses, you got a lot more mobility. You know, it allows you to stem out, position yourself in the canopy. Okay, so a couple other things. So here I've got on a Buckingham Traverse. In the 90s, we were pretty stoked to see these. This was a big upgrade in harnesses. I ran one for a long time because I really, at the time, liked having a bosun seat. So, see, like the earlier wide back we were checking out, it's got leg loops. You know, these are here for a reason. You don't run this harness just sitting in the seat and on your waist belt because you want to share the load. You want to be attached on both your waist and your leg loops. But you got this nice bosun seat, which is effectively a little bench when you're suspended. So I am right now, I'm really comfortable. I'm sitting on a bench. Now it's trapping my legs a little bit still, like the butt strap does, but much less so. A lot of us, we would loosen our leg strap so that could be up a little bit, but you're hanging in the rope, you're waiting for the guys on the ground to get done doing whatever they're doing, whatever's going on. This is comfortable just to sit on. You're sitting on a park bench, effectively. So something I want to talk about sizing. So depending on the harness, and I own several, I've tried out a whole bunch. I'm either a medium or a large. Oftentimes I fall right in between. A medium's not optimum. I need a medium and a half, if you will. A large, you know, is going to be a little bit big, but what really matters, when you're hanging on the rope, you don't want to have pinch points. You don't want to feel like you're going to slip out of the harness, obviously. You want to have some adjustability. But the big key factor for sizing a work positioning harness, particularly if you're doing removals, you know, spur work, where you're working at that traditional lanyard, you know, coming off perpendicular off of your gut, is where these hip Ds are. Okay, so in this particular Buckingham, the large is too big for me because I do need to go one more hole, but my hip Ds are just a little bit too far forward. They should be back about an inch, you know, an inch and an eighth would be optimum. Now, if I go to a medium in this harness, I'm going to be at the other end of the spectrum. I'll probably have one or two holes left on this belt. So come winter time, I got to wear rain gear, long underwear, you know, my saw pants. The medium's not going to work. The large is going to fit fine, and the Ds will be back in their, you know, perfect position. So keep that in mind. You know, you're looking at the sizing charts. You want to, you know, don't be afraid to call in and ask, what should you be looking for from this distance to this distance across the front of your waist? Because that's how we're going to be able to figure out, yeah, you know, you really should be wearing a medium. You know, in the Sequoias, it used to be I wore a size 1. Well, now they changed the breadth of their size range on their two sizes. Now a size 2 is perfect, and I have lots of room. I'm like, you know, right in that first quarter of that sizing. You know, in the Matt Cornell, I got to wear the size 2, and it's a bit big, but the, you know, the size 1's too little. So every harness isn't cut and built the same. It's where these hip Ds are, things you want to think about. On some people, these leg straps are going to really dig in to their groin. You know, once that starts burning on that tendon on the inside of your thigh, it starts to ache if that's digging in there. Everybody's built different. Everybody has different geometry. Some of us, as we get older, we get thicker in our upper body. That's going to make us more top heavy. Maybe you have to go to a different harness. So hopefully that helps you guys out.